Wilbert, the Forest Engine. Written and told by Kiefer Adams. "In a bad mood again, 16, called Dodgson as a grubby little saddle tank engine puffed crossly into view. 16, named of course because of his number, worked in a steel works on the other railway. He was feeling rather fed up. "It's not fair," he grunted as he began bustling about for ladle trucks. "Why does Wilbert get to go to Sodor? What's so special about that crummy little island?" "From what Wilbert told me and the other trucks when he came back last time," said Dodgson, "there's a lot that island has to offer." "Puh!" snorted 16. "What's he gone for this time? Is he going to be a museum piece or something?" 16 puffed crossly away. Dodgson just laughed. He and the other ladle trucks delighted in teasing 16. They had great respect for Wilbert and were pleased that he was going to be allowed to see the Fat Controller's engines once more. By this point, Wilbert was already coasting along Sudrian rails until he arrived at Brendam Docks, where the Fat Controller was waiting for him. "Ah, Wilbert," he greeted, "it's so good to see you again. I trust all is well on the Dean Forest region." "Oh, it certainly is, sir, thank you," smiled Wilbert happily. "I can't wait to see Percy again." "Percy has been speaking very highly of you since your last visit," smiled the Fat Controller, "but you won't be working with him. You'll be helping Henry at the forest. We had a storm a few days ago, and some of the trees have been badly damaged as a result. You and Henry will be collecting the trees and take them to the timber yards, where an important shipment of timber can then be delivered to the docks." "Yes, sir," said Wilbert. The Fat Controller smiled as he walked away. "Given you're a forest engine yourself, I knew I could rely on you for this job," he added. He then went to do an inspection of the dockside. With a pump of his pistons and a sharp blast of his whistle, Wilbert set off to meet Henry at the forest. "Too bad 16 couldn't come along," Wilbert said to his driver. "If he behaved just once, he'd be treated to all this too." Back on the mainland, 16 was grumbling dreadfully. Dodgson and the other trucks had given him grief throughout the morning. Now he was shunting trucks outside the steelworks, and they were just as bad. "It's not fair. I wish Wilbert had taken me along," 16 grunted. "I'd do great on Sodor." "Perhaps the Fat Controller doesn't want an engine who goes cab over wheels at the tip," said 16's driver firmly. "I told you, Dodgson and the trucks pulled me along." "So you say. You'd always wanted to go past that danger sign," said the driver, "and unfortunately you got your wish, but not the way you expected it. That's why manager keeps you here now." "Oh, you sound just like the other two engines," said 16. "That 10-wheeler and that little diesel, they always say, 'Oh, 16, you can't do this, you can't do that,' and then they just toddle off with their loads till the gate closes." "That's enough, 16, interrupted his driver. "Perhaps if you were well behaved like Wilbert, you'd get to see the Fat Controller's railway and everything it has to offer. Now come along and be a sensible engine." "Fine," 16 sulked. But for the rest of the day, he got nothing but grief from the engines of the steelworks and the silly trucks that crowded all around him. Meanwhile, Wilbert had arrived safely at Henry's forest. It didn't take him long to locate the big green engine. He was clearing away what had been left of the storm's damage. "Oh," said Henry when Wilbert pulled up. "So you're the infamous forest engine Percy won't stop talking about." "You've heard of me?" "Well, of course," replied Henry. "I saw you at their engine gala last year." "Oh, yes, of course," said Wilbert, blushing. He was then caught by surprise when a colourful little bird fluttered onto Henry's buffer beam. "What is that?" he exclaimed. "This is the Sodor goldfinch," replied Henry. "It's one of the rarest birds on the island. I haven't seen this species since I first came to this forest. It brings back so many memories." Wilbert gave a smile. "You can see the rest of the wildlife later," said Henry. "Come along, let's go to work." And indeed they did. Wilbert and Henry worked very well together. Henry might be strong, but he was quick to misjudge Wilbert's strength. He pulled more trucks than any other tank engine could ever dream of pulling. Wilbert enjoyed himself immensely. He loved seeing all the sights of Henry's forest. While having a small break, he stopped for a drink. There was a rustling sound in the bushes up ahead, and Wilbert was surprised when a baby fawn came into view. "Oh, hello, little one," he greeted. The fawn was shortly joined by its mother, who scanned the area for any dangers before looking at Wilbert. "Don't worry about your little one," Wilbert said to the doe. "He's in good hands." The deer cocked its head in confusion at the sight of Wilbert. Then it turned around and led her fawn away. "Henry was right," said Wilbert. "I love the nature round here." He continued his work, and before long the forest was looking a lot better, and all the trees cut down to timber were delivered safely to the docks. Wilbert had some extra time, so he asked the Fat Controller if he could help the others, which of course he agreed. Wilbert did as many odd jobs as he could, and all of the engines were grateful. They were all sad when it was time for him to go. "It's a shame we couldn't catch up," said Percy, "but I'm glad you're back. You've done wonders for us." "Yes, indeed," agreed Thomas. "A true credit to the railway." "Thank you both," said Wilbert. He then turned to Thomas. "I didn't get to thank you for my last-minute invitation to the gala. I had a wonderful time." "You're very welcome," replied Thomas. "Anything for Percy here. He spoke so highly of you." "So I've heard," said Wilbert. He gave a small wink to Percy. "Keep it up, won't you? I hope to come back again." "You certainly will," smiled Percy. Wilbert, Thomas and Percy exchanged their goodbyes, and the forest engine made his way home. "I wonder what the other engines will think of Wilbert's visits," said Percy. "Well, he told Toby about one in particular," said Thomas. "I think he's going to be in for a treat when Wilbert comes home." Dusk was falling on the Dean Forest Railway when Wilbert returned. 16 was in a siding, sulking, having just delivered Dodgson and the other ladle trucks to the steelworks. "Oh, it's you," he scoffed as Wilbert pulled in. "How'd you get on?" "Very well, thank you," replied Wilbert. "Did you enjoy yourself?" "Barely. Those trucks wouldn't be quiet about my cab over wheels incident." "Well, like your driver says," said Wilbert, "you shouldn't have passed the danger sign." 16 just grunted. "Anyway," Wilbert continued, "I had a lovely time." Snorted 16. "I can't imagine why." "What's so special about it?" "It's got beautiful locations, engines who are always welcoming, and a controller who knows how to speak to them," said Wilbert. "If you behave yourself, you may get to understand why I enjoy going to Sodor." "Actually, I prefer my steelworks, if that's all right with you," 16 said. "I've lost me sense of adventure." "Suit yourself," said Wilbert. And he puffed away, feeling a lot happier about his time on the island. 16 had a sense that there was more to Sodor than Wilbert was letting on. But of course, between you and me, he would never know what it was. But we know, don't we?